Amir.
It's lunchtime, but I'm so lazy to go out. What should I eat?
Amir. Amir, why you don't go out for lunch?
Ed. I'm so lazy to go out.
Hey, Shu, who are you texting?
Oh no, I'm just texting Ami, the new employee. I think he kind of attractive. You want to see?
Okay, guys, can you guys relate to any of this situation? If yes, do you know that we actually have legislation upon this type of sexual harassment? Come, let us explain it to you.
So what is the legislation that help us as a worker to feel protected in our workplace? It is the legislations on the preventions and eradications of sexual harassment. So what is the purpose of this legislation? The purpose of this legislation is actually to reduce down the number of sexual harassment cases. And it is also to ensure that sexual harassment does not occur. Other than that, it is actually to ensure that companies that adequate procedures available to deal with the problem and prevent its recurrence. Next, it's to encourage employers to adopt the code of practice against sexual harassment and internal mechanism to prevent sexual harassment at our workplace. For your information, in 1999, the Ministry of Human Resources have introduced the Code of Practice and the Prevention of Sexual Harassment in our workplace. This code actually serves as a practical guideline for companies to set up their own implementation to handle sexual harassment in the workplace. But remember, this code is not effective as if it is just a mere guideline.
Thank you, Fatinur Shuhada, for your great explanation. Now, let's move on to the next part. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Nuratrana Shahir Pinti Anwar, and I'm here to present to you about types of sexual harassment in the workplace. Firstly, sexual coercion refers to the act of using pressures, manipulation, threats, or force to compel someone to engage in sexual activities against their will. This action can give impact on the victim's ability to work in a safe environment. For example, manager tries to coerce a worker into performing sexual favors in exchange for benefits such as salary increases or promotion. Secondly, which is sexual annoyance. This kind of sexual type unrelated to employee profession but makes the victim feel uncomfortable with the environment. It causes discomfort, distress, and annoyance to the victim. For example, unwanted attention such as staring or making an inappropriate gesture. Under sexual coercion and annoyance, there are 5 other types of sexual harassment in the workplace. Firstly, physical harassment. It refers to unwanted physical contact which can cause fear and harm to the individual. This kind of harassment violates personal boundaries and considers serious offense. For example, inappropriate pinching, hugging, and patting. The next sexual harassment is verbal harassment. It's included written or spoken words that are intended to harm or threaten another party, for example, offensive jokes or comments. To add, there are also visual harassment. It can create an uncomfortable or intimidating environment for an individual, for example, showing inappropriate images, gesture, or symbol. The next form of sexual harassment is non-verbal harassment. It refers to unwelcome behavior or gesture that disrespect the victim without using spoken or written word. For example, ignoring or eye rolling. Last but not least, psychological harassment. It involves persistent or harmful behavior that are intended to undermine the victim's mental or emotional being. For example, isolated individual from joining activities activities and conversation, and also scapegoating, which means blaming individual for problems that are not their responsibilities.
Thank you, Adriana, for the great information. My name is Muhammad Amir Hakim bin Zamzaimi, and I will explain about the implementation of legislation in an organization. When it comes to implementing legislation for sexual harassment, organizations typically have a policy and procedure in place to address and prevent such behavior. These policies are designed to create a safe and respectful work environment for all employees. The first step in the implementation process is to have a clear and comprehensive sexual harassment policy. This policy should define what constitutes sexual harassment, provide examples of unacceptable behavior, and outline the consequences for violating the policy. Next, organizations should conduct regular training sessions to educate employees about sexual harassment, its impact, and how to prevent it. This training helps raise awareness and ensure employees understand their rights and responsibility. In terms of the inquiry process for complaints, organizations should have a designated procedure for reporting and addressing sexual harassment incidents. This includes providing multiple reporting channels such as a confidential hotline or an HR representative to encourage employees to come forward with their concerns. Once a complaint is received, organizations should conduct a thorough and impartial investigation. This may involve gathering evidence, interviewing relevant parties, and documenting the findings. It's crucial to ensure confidentiality and protect the privacy of all individuals involved. Finally, organizations should take appropriate action based on the investigation findings. This may include disciplinary measures for the harassers, providing support and resources for the victim, and implementing corrective measures for the prevent future incidents. In Malaysia, employers are required to conduct an inquiry into complaints of sexual harassment in the workplace. Section 81B of the Employment Act outlines the procedure for handling such complaints. Here is a step-by-step guide on the inquiry process. Number 1. Submission of complaint. The complainant submit a complaint of sexual harassment to the employer. Number 2. Employer response. The employer must acknowledge the complaint and inform the complainant of their refusal to inquire into the complaint if any of the exceptions apply, such as if the complaint have previously been inquired into and no sexual harassment was found or not made in a good faith. Number 3. Initiation of inquiry. If the employer decides to conduct an inquiry, they must issue a show cause letter to the accused employee stating material particulars such as the time, day, and place of the alleged incident. Number 4. Inquiry process. The employer must investigate the complaint within 30 days after it was made. The inquiry can involve interviewing the complainant, the accused employee, and any other relevant witnesses. Number 5. Report of inquiry. After the inquiry, the employer must submit a report of the inquiry to the Director General of Labour. Number 6. Outcome of inquiry. Based on the findings of the inquiry, the employer may take appropriate action such as a warning or terminating the accused employee depending on the severity of the harassment. Number 7. Appeal. If the complainant or the accused employee is dissatisfied with the outcome of the inquiry, they may appeal to the Director General of Labour for further action. Next, I will pass to Ayuni. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Rajinur Ayuni Fitrina and I will analyze the statistics and reference case based on the sexual harassment in the workplace. This is the last 2 years statistic of women receive sexual harassment in the workplace. As the shown pie chart here, the most common race that experience sexual harassment in Malaysia is Malay, with 60% of cases, followed by Chinese 24%, Indian 7%, and others 3%. Let's move to the region bar chart. The highest percentage of sexual harassment cases is found in the central region, which is Selangor and federal territories of Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya with 26%. The second highest percentage is in East Malaysia, which is Sabah, Sarawak and federal territory of Labuan, and northern region, Kedah, Perlis, Perak and Penang, both at 21%. Let's continue with the age bar chart. Women aged between 24 until 29 years experience the highest percentage of sexual harassment, which is 34%, while the second highest percentage was among women aged 30 until 34 years, which is 24%. These statistics indicate that sexual harassment is a significant issue in Malaysia, with a considerable number of cases reported across different races, regions, and age groups. It is essential for all authorities and organizations to continue addressing this issue and raising awareness about the importance of preventing sexual harassment in the workplace. This is a reference case based on the sexual harassment in the workplace. It is between Muhammad Rizwan Abdul Razak and Asmah binti Haji Muhammad Noor. This case is about a sexual harassment complaint made by the defendant against the plaintiff, who was her supervisor at Lembaga Tabung Haji. The defendant accused the plaintiff, Muhammad Rizwan Abdul Razak, of making sexual harassment remarks, including offensive comments and sexual advances towards her, which she claimed caused her mental and emotional stress and trauma. The plaintiff claimed that the complaint was defamatory and affected his reputation and standing as a Muslim and a member of the senior management of Lembaga Tabung Haji. The court examined whether the defendant's allegations were justified and whether they amounted to defamation. The court also considered the issue of negligence and nervous shock in relation to the sexual harassment allegation. In conclusion, while Malaysia has made legislative effort to address sexual harassment in the workplace, the effectiveness of the legislation in achieving its purpose depends on its implementation and impact. The proposed anti-sexual harassment bill, which provides safeguards for victims and impel employers to carry out investigation when complaints are received, could further strengthen the legal framework, but more needs to be done to ensure protection and support the victims.
In conclusion, sexual harassment may have different approach, but it is still called as sexual harassment. And also, we always need to remember, not every accusations can be considered as the truth. All the guidelines and investigations needed so that we can prove it is actually a sexual harassment issue. Thank you, that's all from us.